true. Visit lawfullyoursweddingchapel.com to learn more and schedule a tour.
G58, G50.
Looking for fun, excitement, and a chance to win big? Come to Nashua Bingo, 166 Daniel Webster Highway South, Nashua, New Hampshire, where you can play bingo games, pull tabs, large bonuses, electronic gaming machines, and a great full-service kitchen serving pizzas, paninis, and beer and wine. Open 3 p.m. daily, bingo games at 6:45, 6 p.m. on Sunday. Bring your friends, grab your lucky dauber, and let's shout it loud. Bingo! Nashua Bingo, where winners play.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Lisa and Robin are two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking, what's next? They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robin, on the mic.
Welcome back to another hour of Lisa and Robin on the mic. You are listening on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live. We thought we were up on Facebook. I don't think we are, but we always are up on YouTube and after the fact on Spotify. But you should listen to us here.
Yes.
And I got to take these glasses off because now I can't see you.
Okay, so before we get into our subject,
yes,
which we were supposed to do that a while back.
I started, but we didn't get there.
Okay, and I want you to ask John this question too.
Okay.
So if you were a flavor, what would you be?
Cinnamon.
I like that.
What are you?
Well, I was thinking, what could I be spicy? But I really came up with key lime pie. It's tart. It's sweet. Especially with the whipped cream.
It's irresistible. You can't not have it.
I like it. I think that's what. But I was like something with crushed red pepper, and I was like, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But so I want you to ask John what he thinks of, like, if you, what would you be? And so I already know Chris's. Like, Chris has said, I always think he would be whiskey and vanilla. Like a really good whiskey but that little, like, I don't know, vanilla is kind of like a comforting, calming scent. He said I would be a honeysuckle for him. And he's like, a warm summer night. He said, you know, when you take the honeysuckle and you pull it out and you just get that little drop of sweetness. I don't think I've ever
had honeysuckle.
Oh my God, as kids, man, we used to pull all the stamens out and like get the little bit of that little drop of
nectar.
Yes.
Really? Okay.
And so that's what he said I would be. That little drop of sweetness. I was like, well, it was sweet.
I would say John is strawberry because that's his favorite flavor. And when he was a kid and he was up in Montreal with family, they used to have just bushes and bushes of strawberries, and he used to just sit on his bike and eat strawberries. So I always think that's his favorite flavor. But I don't know that he would say that about himself.
And yeah, I want to know what he would say about himself, and I want to know what flavor you would be
to him. Yeah. I think I'm cinnamon because cinnamon is dessert, but cinnamon can also be warmth in food, and it's my favorite ice cream flavor. Have you ever had cinnamon ice cream?
No, I don't think I've ever had cinnamon ice cream. I know that I don't like cinnamon in Mexican food when they put it in there.
And I don't like cinnamon in tomato sauce.
No, I don't.
No.
Cinnamon has its place. So guess what I'm working on? I should tell you. We can tell you later. So I bought some butternut squash ravioli. And so I've been trying to think. I'm building a dish, and I'm not sure. So I want to serve it with, take a really thin chicken breast and do prosciutto and some kind of a cheese in there and do kind of like a rollatini, roll it up. Or I'm not sure how I will do it yet, but I'm thinking the prosciutto with the chicken, the butternut squash, and the ravioli. And last night I had a bite of white chocolate, and I was thinking, what if you took made a white chocolate sauce and put that over the maybe like some kind of a white chocolate sauce over top of the butternut squash. I think it would be really good.
I think butter. I mean, whenever I have butternut squash at Cotton Restaurant, they always do it in a browned butter with hazelnuts and cranberries.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like the cranberry.
Yeah, because cranberry and chicken goes good.
Yes. That's a good thing. That was a good flavor. Those are good flavors
You can
together.
also do sun-dried tomato with the prosciutto and the chicken.
Yes, I do like sun-dried tomatoes.
Because I think it's just a good flavor
But I don't
packer.
know. But I don't know if the sun-dried tomato would be too much flavor with the squash.
So there's a restaurant called Venetian Moon, and I've remade their chicken rollatini, which is mushroom, sun-dried tomatoes, and prosciutto. And I take it and I put it in a Cuisinart so it blends all into like almost like a thick pesto.
Yeah.
And then I put that in the chicken and then roll it. And then we do it with a mushroom port cream sauce.
Oh, that would be good. Well, I might do that. That sounds good. I love sun-dried tomatoes. But so I'll do like a pasta dish that has chicken, like a sweet pepper, like a red pepper or yellow pepper. Or usually I will do orange or yellow because then I do sun-dried tomatoes, black olives. Sometimes I've put capers in it, but you don't really need capers if you put the black olives in it.
Because of the salt? You
Yeah.
get the salt.
But I love the chewy and the tartness of the sun-dried tomato, but I love like the saltiness of, I'm not a big black olive fan, but I will have it in certain things. And I just made a red sauce the other day and I put, I blackened shrimp and I did a red sauce and I added black olives to it. And then I just did blackened shrimp on top of that. And I'm like, that was really good.
I like puttanesca, which is
Yes.
olives and stuff. I love olives. I could never.
I love olives too.
I would eat olives by themselves. I used to take a bunch of different olives, smash them all down, almost like a tapenade, warm it up in olive oil with thyme, and just make it all warm, and then have that as like a little dip with crackers.
There was a restaurant in D.C. that had an olive spread, and they would serve the long, skinny breadsticks
Sticks,
with
yeah.
it, and you just dip it. Man, that stuff was so good.
I love olives.
I do too.
All right, so what has been your experience with estrangement? Estranged, that word. Or do you not have much experience? I feel like I'm an expert.
Well, I feel like in certain ways, I feel like my first initial response was I don't have a lot of experience with estrangement. But then if I dive a little bit deeper and I think about my family, not my extended family, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, there were a lot of, I don't feel like I ever really knew them. I don't feel like we ever really had a relationship. I just remember it's like you were the kid, and then as an adult, I remember like I was in the hospital I had just delivered twins, and my aunt was talking to my mom, and my aunt had told my mom that I needed to call my grandparents and tell them that I had, I'm like, I just had babies. I just had an emergency C-section and I just had a natural birth. Like, at what point, like, I always felt like the responsibility for me to maintain a relationship was always on them.
On you.
On me. Without any coming back.
It being a two-way street. It was not a two-way street.
Yes.
It was the one-way street of you doing that.
Yes. It was always you're the one who needs to maintain, and that was the expectation.
Yeah.
I think I grew up with that, I didn't know it at the time, but until I got to be a younger adult and I moved away from my family, it was, well, you need to call home. You need to call home. And like, I'm not making that much money. We didn't have cell phones back then. I didn't have a cell phone. So I was paying for my long distance phone calls from Cape Cod to Virginia. And I'm like, I have to be selective about who I'm calling. You call me. It's
You're the adult.
It's still the same thing. It's still the same thing. And then there's friends I feel like we have become estranged, but I don't feel there's no, I don't know that you would call it an estranged. we've grown apart. We're
So
very different
estrangement
people.
is the breaking of an intimate bond, but there is the underlying sort of idea that it was a hostile break.
Well,
There was some hostility
yes.
into it instead of just when you say an estranged ex, right? You're saying that there's some kind of hostility there versus a friendship where you haven't seen them for a long period of time, like you had a falling out.
So, so to me, growing apart, growing apart to me doesn't feel like it carries any emotional
weight
to it. Where estrangement, like I wrote down, abuse, neglect, substance abuse, mental health, divorce, mismatched expectations, different core values, family dynamics, individual perspectives. I feel like those are things that cause separation, that will cause
like a hostile
that leave
situation.
an emotional impact.
Yes.
So I think estrangement leaves an emotional impact, where I feel like growing apart
doesn't. Yeah, that's a good distinction.
Because also, there's also abandonment. And how do you
Ooh, I didn't even throw that in the mix.
So how do you determine abandonment versus estranged? So sometimes we actually are using the word wrong. Not the word, but sometimes we're using it in a different, and last night Chris was like, well, what are you going to say? Because there's a hot topic. I think people would, I have abandonment issues, and I do take it back from issues. And it's not like I don't want to throw my parents under the bus, right. But it's just that we grew up in a very different time. In us now having knowledge in changing and evolving as humans, as a species, and learning to be and being more educated, we parent differently. Our family structure looks different. The way we communicate is much different. Our roles inside of the family are much different. Back in the 50s, the expectation was for the woman to be at home, and you always saw
and a lot of times it wasn't. You got together really young before you were making the decision to get together, maybe because there was an unwanted pregnancy or something else. Like, I don't think...
Or even the social norm. Like, my parents grew up in an age where the social norm was, college was for rich people, and if you're just the working middle class, then you graduate high school, you get a good job, and you get married. Mm-hmm. And they grew up... And so I feel like our generation was kind of more on the cusp of that. My mom, when I was a junior in high school, had gone back to college because she wanted her degree, and she felt that was important, and for title. And I'm proud of her for doing it, but that was her changing
the paradigm of what she was used to.
Writing her own story. She's changing the narrative. Like, hey, it doesn't have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that she was aware of consciously doing it, but looking back, that's how we evolve into hopefully better relationships, more communication, more realistic of, I don't know, people will be having this conversation 40 years from now about how
we did it wrong.
We did it wrong.
Right.
So it's not, there's no judgment, and there's no like, oh, poor me or any of that.
Yeah. No, not from that perspective at all. Not from that perspective at all.
But knowing who I am, in looking back at some of my instances, my needs were not taken care of. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't from a lack of malice or intention.
Right.
It's just, it was part of what we grew up in. It's part of our culture at that time.
Yes.
So what about you?
So I feel like I'm very practiced in estrangement because I grew up in a family that someone was always not speaking to someone else on a regular enough basis. So you would be you'd have a Christmas tradition, then all of a sudden this year, all Christmas traditions stopped because two people weren't speaking. And then something else happened, and then these two people weren't speaking. And then something happened, and this group isn't speaking. And then these people start speaking again, but then they don't speak against that person.
Yes.
So I feel like I was practiced in it. So when I chose it as a strategy, once I started becoming an adult, and I remember distinctly getting into it with a family member and them being so offended that I used this tool against them. And I remember distinctly saying, who do you think I learned it from?
Right.
You were the catalyst.
And I'm sure a stranger. And they deny it.
And we didn't use that word at the time.
Right.
But you were the one who taught us
this technique.
The minute you don't like something, you don't speak to them until they learn their lesson. Like, you were the one you were the leader
So listen
of that
to this.
movement.
Yeah, I know. Talk about like FYI, like my family's going to come after me. Like I might be estranged after this conversation, but I
And-
literally don't care. I mean, I do, but I don't. But I'm
and
not going
one of my families, my birth family, my maternal side estranged my paternal side.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, what do you think I'm doing? I get the strategy from you.
Yeah.
I'm just using it back on you. You
Right.
just don't like it.
Right.
And I remember
How
distinctly
dare you?
at 30, it like came into my brain one day that, hey, whoa, this is something I learned. It was something I practiced because I learned it, but I use it against people that I don't have any reason why I'm using it against these people. This is not my estrangement.
Right.
This is your story. And I remember reaching out to family members who I had really no relationship with and being like, hey, hi. And they're like, what do you want?
Right.
And I was like, hey, I don't really know what happened, and that's not really mine.
Yeah.
And but I took it upon myself as an adult to be like, I don't have to have that story with this group.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
And I
you
remember
changed the narrative for you.
and so I had an uncle who got divorced, but I loved my uncle's wife. Loved her. Like she babysat me. She
You
was,
had a relationship.
I had a relationship with her.
Yeah.
And so when my family estranged her, like she was the ex.
Yeah.
And I remember I was however old I was probably 15 and a half. I got my permit. She was a hairdresser. I went to her hairdressing shop and I was like, I want you to cut my hair because I wanted a relationship with her again. And I had no way of having it with my family.
Yeah.
And I remember it being like when my mother found out that you can't let your so-and-so find out that she's cutting your hair. And I'm like, she never did anything to me.
That's just unnecessary
She
drama.
never,
like
she never did anything to me. I don't even
right.
because then you're
Why
starting
do I
to
have to choose sides? I don't even like him.
who's saying he's right?
Right.
Who's saying he's right at all?
Right.
And but also,
Right.
I had already really started cementing in all you people lying anyways. And and then I kind of did that. I'm sure, but it might be in some response to something else.
But Lisa,
and that's none of my business.
That's
none
a
of my
powerful
business.
tool to have at that young age. Yeah, the power of discernment in being able to objectify.
Yep.
Even whether we knew it or not, but like we don't have to hold that just because they had a divorce and they went through a bad.
But my family saw it as a betrayal because you're choosing the wrong side.
Yes. So we had some dear friends of ours go through, a divorce, and it was bad timing on, bad. But there's never going to be a good time. There's never going to be a good time. And I think that they both handled it, given the hurt and all of these things. They handled it, I think, pretty well. And I think they did a good job. I think there was a lot of, even watching on Facebook, some people took that and blew that up. And I'm like watching this person and I'm like, you're so foolish. That's not your argument.
Yes.
That's not your argument. And you are fighting for the one that you think is wounded. And she's not even arguing that. She's not even, she's not fighting it. You're being, there's a word. You're being a raging, advocate for her, and she's not even asking you to be an advocate for her. And I'm like, it's so foolish. My aunt, so my mom had moved, my mom and her husband had moved around the country a lot. He worked for nuclear power. And so they ended up moving back to Maryland, which put them about 3 hours away from home, their hometown. So my aunt, one of my aunts, would come and visit all the time. She loved hanging out. They were close. All the sisters would come and hang out. My mom ended up moving down to Wilmington, which is now it's 5 hours instead of 3 hours. But she's like, I've all the space. We're right at the beach. Come down anytime. We have a condo down there too. You can stay there. There's room for everybody to stay. All it costs you is gas money. She refused to speak to her, and it's been over 10 years. She's been pissed off at my mother for moving from Maryland because it's ruined her life. And I'm like, wow. I just think of that. That makes me so sad. My mom got a divorce from, rightfully so, they still have a great relationship. She and her ex-husband have a great relationship. They are still friends. They still care for each other. But two of my aunts chose sides and literally stopped speaking to my mom. And they called my stepfather and was just pumping them for information and pretending like they were like cared for him and like how dare her do all of this stuff. And I'm like, literally, did you not read my mom's book? Did you not see the hell that she just went through for the last 25 years and you can't support her?
Yeah.
So there's me saying like, you have no space in my life.
Or even to say this.
I blocked you. I blocked him. I blocked him on Facebook. And
or even to say, that's not my experience. Like, I know those family members with that divorce were going through a lot of stuff, and I know it caused a lot of harm, but there was no innocent party in it.
Right.
But that's not my story in it.
Right.
I am an individual outside of that story. She never treated me with any harm. And then as 10, 20, 30 years go by, maybe she was more right than any one of us wanted to give her credit for. But time has to tell that story.
Yeah.
The next several relationships have to be destroyed.
Right.
Before that story
Right.
comes up. Like, maybe she did have something to say back there.
Might be, yeah.
Maybe she got out early. Lucky her.
Yes.
Maybe,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Lucky
yes.
her.
Yes.
But one of the things I was thinking of, because it came up in February, it came up a bunch, and then it came up on and I was like, I don't know if it's because it came up so much in my real life that my phone started giving it to me on like social media posts where this one woman's like, I never talked about this, but I was estranged from my mother for 10 years. And then I was like, wow, this is something we should talk about because it's come up because it happens all the time. It's a universal thing.
Right.
It's something that happens to all of us at all times. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in talking about it, I know why we do it. I used it as a tool. It's power. I think a little bit of it is power. So part of...
I also think manipulation.
I think a little bit of definitely. So I remember when I used it as a tool, and that person was like, how could you do this? And I was like, you taught me.
Right.
And I remember feeling powerful. I remember thinking...
feeling like you have a person in a position.
Well, I felt like you're doing something I don't like, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. I don't like it, and I don't have to deal with it. I can erase it from my life by erasing you from my life.
Yeah.
So that was the power.
But see, to me, I feel like there's sometimes that people need to be... Some people look better in the rearview mirror.
And I also think...
And I don't think that would you call that estrangement? Or that's just saying, this doesn't serve me.
If you're permanently ending a relationship, I don't call it estrangement.
Yeah.
Because you're ending a relationship.
Yeah.
But when you're related or, especially like birth relations, they're supposed to be something magical and mystical about being blood relatives. Because everyone says blood is thicker than water, blood is thicker than water. And I think, oof, is it? Because in my group, it wasn't.
I think some of the closest people in my life that I consider family are friends.
Yes,
because I do think that family is. I mean, you definitely you share blood. You share blood and you share DNA,
and you share a history.
But it doesn't make you beholden to someone.
You share generations of a history.
Yes,
of how you came in. Right, a lineage. So I do think that piece. But go on. And so the other thing. So I think it's a power move a little bit. I also think it's self-protection. If we're in a battle, sometimes to protect myself, I just have to give myself space. Because when we're acting crazy together, our particular brand of crazy, which is a family thing. Everyone plays the role in their family dynamic, right? And I don't want to play this role anymore. Right. I don't know how I got assigned this role. I don't like this role. I'm not good at this role. It's not my best self. It's not my most attractive features, by any stretch of any imagination. And I don't want to play anymore. So sometimes it's for self-protection of I'm removing myself from the situation.
But that's a healthy way of dealing with it, I think.
So is it estrangement if you're doing it for self-preservation?
No, I don't think so. Because then if you're doing it for self-preservation, that means that you're letting go of the I'm going to one-up you or I got you. And I think that's where I see. I think that's that line where estrangement is. Well, I'm going to cut them out of the family, or I'm going to cut them, or I'm not going to talk to them for 3 months because they didn't call me, or I'm going to do this. See, that's manipulation. I'm doing that. I'm doing that because I want a result from you.
Yes.
And when you do that because you're self-protecting, you're not doing it to get a result for them. You're doing it to get a result for yourself.
Yes.
And to me, I don't think that's estrangement. That's saying, I got to take care of me. So actually, so it comes down to...
So I'll have another thing. I have another thing to ask you about this. So, but do you think too much estrangement hardens your heart?
I think it can. What do you mean too much? Like you've got multiple people?
Well, like my family, when I was saying anyone at any given time isn't talking to anyone, like there's always this like, and the running joke was, you know, are we speaking to so-and-so?
Right. Right.
Is this like,
right.
You know, because we're always in an on-off with, you know, oh, we are talking to them, but we're not talking to the daughter now. Oh, but we are talking to the mother. Like,
yes.
There was always that. There was almost a joking about it. It was so common of that piece of it. So because then I realized once I started reaching out like to my paternal side of my family, I'm like, hey, this isn't even like, why do I even have this?
Right. Right.
Like at all. And then the more you're like, well, those people are kind of crazy.
I think that once you grow and you get more, you actually
Not my
have
family,
different
father's
kinds
side.
of relationships, that you have a different
perspective.
You have a level of maturity of saying, so the answer is yes and no. It's yes if you allow it to isolate you, you know, to make you, what was the question what was
Does
the word?
it harden your heart?
Harden your heart. Yes. If you allow it to harden your heart. Yes, I think it does.
Because you have if some of it is from a form of hate versus a form of self-protection.
Well, it's also, but estrangement usually comes from like you're rejecting this person. Like, hey, you're not fitting in my circle.
Yeah.
You're not fitting in the peg that I created for you. So you're gonna get that you're gonna get resistance from it. So I feel like if you. So yes, I do think that if you harbor it, and I think that if you live in that space, then your heart could be hardened.
Mm.
But if you go on and as you grow, you have fulfilling relationships, then you can add depth to it. You can look back on those and like, hey, that's what you started doing, repairing your relationships, or going back and be like, wait, why do I even feel this way? Why haven't we not talked in 5 years or 6 years? It's because we were doing what we were told until we were no longer doing what we're told. We're actually starting to think for ourselves.
Yes.
So yes and no.
So when I was thinking about it as a hardening of the heart, I was thinking, because this is where I come to redemption. Because I was estranged from my mother, and she died before we redeemed our relationship.
Mm.
And one thing I do believe in is redemption.
Mm.
I do, because if I didn't believe in redemption, even though I didn't have it with my mother, and that's a weird thing to say, but like we didn't come together as a mother and daughter and stitch together any kind of relationship before she passed away.
Yeah.
We were in that ripped. We were in that torn.
But you were left to pick up the pieces. And even the last time you and I were in Florida, when we were walking back down the sidewalk that night, listening to you tell the timeline and the story and sharing of it, you've done a tremendous amount of healing. In rewriting your narrative, whether you think that you're doing it or not, but you're actually able to look at it. And actually, I've heard several times you giving her grace and compassion and saying, well, I could see where she tried. I could see where she did this. It wasn't her nature, but you were looking for the good and able to lay down some of those.
Because I'm looking for redemption in a relationship I didn't have. I'm looking for it still while I'm alive, even though she's not alive. Because I was joking around to myself the other day of, did this also happen while she was going through menopause? Like maybe,
I know.
Maybe she just lost her mind because her estrogen fell off a cliff or something. Like maybe whoa, I didn't know that was like.
It could very well be. It could very well be. We are many different characters in our own story. We do.
Because I was like, huh. Like, if she was alive, I'd be like, what was this like? Was this like this? Because now I understand a little bit.
Yes.
Like, so there was and so what I'm trying to do, because I didn't redeem, I do believe in redemption because I believe we're all faulty and we're all human and we're all, whether you want to use the word, a sinner is a kind of harsh word, but we're all going to falter.
Yes.
And we're all going to make the wrong decision. We're all going to make mistakes. So if you don't believe in redemption, then you just believe you're doomed. You've got this nihilistic existential crisis because you're not perfect, but nobody is.
Yeah.
So what are we all doing here?
Yeah.
Right? So I do believe in redemption. So what is, for the longest time, what was the most upsetting about my relationship with my mother was that we didn't redeem. We didn't redeem a mother and daughter relationship. And after a certain period of time, I did reach out, and she was like, what do you want? And I'm like, well, I'm your only child. Is there no relationship you want with a child? And I'm an adult child.
Yeah.
I'm not a child anymore, but I'm your only offspring.
Right.
And when there wasn't that there, it really made my estrangement that I did feel guilty about during times. Because sometimes I was like, it's totally for self-preservation, but then I would think, I should be strong enough that I should be able to handle it. And then I would go back to, no, I can't. And you
well, that's because you
oscillate.
You want this connection. You want this relationship. Because community and unity is very important to you.
Yeah, and family's very important to me. Like, I feel like what I didn't get in my birth family, I made up for in spades in my married family.
Yeah.
Like, I could
and
not
I think
love my
that
married family
allows
anymore.
you to have redemption and being like, seeing somebody that wasn't, I think where estrangement comes from is we get so caught up trying to hold somebody else to our own standard. And what is really interesting to me is we hold these other people to the standard that we have for ourselves, but we don't hold ourselves to that. We don't hold ourselves accountable. We allow ourselves grace for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, to me, I think that's being a hypocrite. And I actually think that it's not, it's hypocritical. Well, because allowing yourself grace for it is when, me saying that is when you're making excuses for yourself. Well, the reason I don't pick up the phone and call is because you didn't call me, or the reason I didn't do that is because I work a full-time job and I got 8 kids to take care of and I got to do this and I'm going through this. So do you see how we always give our grace? Well, I've been traveling for all this time, or I don't have a cell phone, or blah, 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 all these different reasons. We give ourselves all that grace in that room, but we don't give it for everybody else. We're like, nope, we're going to cut you off.
And I think what people don't really understand in that. So when I picked up the phone and called my paternal side of the family, because I was like, well, this is stupid. Those people were crazy. I think my paternal family got off light by not having to deal with those people. Right? Like, you start, like, when you're in that drama of that, right? And so when I called up and reached out, and they're like, what do you want? And I'm like, well, you're really my only connection to my father. My father passed away years ago, and you're really the only connection. And I really don't know you. And I think, and then I got to know them and everything. And it was like, I'm glad I reached out to that. But there was that point in that conversation, which it could have been just rejection, because they could have said, hey, you haven't been part of our life for 30 years. We don't need you for the next 30 years. Right. Because there was that moment of, what do you want? Which is, I didn't even really know. I just knew I had family that I had no connection with. That wasn't my choosing. That wasn't because we had a big fight. That wasn't because they treated me poorly. That wasn't because we had any estrangement, because we had no relationship to begin with.
Right.
So there is, and I think of people like, this conversation has come up over the last 2 months a dozen times about, for various people, friends and family and various things. And I just heard it at a party the other night. Oh, I'm estranged. And I think about the word redemption, and I think they're not, like, we always think, well, they should reach out. They were the ones who had the harsh words, or they're the ones who stopped talking to me, so they should reach out. But what we're really afraid of is we're afraid of 2 things. We're afraid of the rejection, we're afraid of that same storyline picking up exactly where it left off. And the reason why we left it in the first place was we didn't have a place for it in our lives. We didn't have room for it. We didn't. But what I think is interesting is hopefully we're all growing and learning. And again, this comes into the birthday piece of it. I've learned some lessons, and I hope I can try to come to that relationship with some new tools so that I don't deal with the same problem the same way.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to write that down because redemption comes when you start to heal. I think that's
But
right.
do you need redemption to heal? I think no.
No. I think redemption comes when you start to heal. When you can say, hey, I'm carrying this. I've been carrying this weight. I don't need to carry this weight. Or I choose to look at it from a different perspective. Because you know what? Whether she died and you didn't get to continue or have a chance to physically repair, you took the initiative to physically repair on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, like, you think about divorce. There are so many times going through a divorce that I had so much to say, and we would argue because I was trying to prove that I was not as bad as you think I am, or that I was worthy of love. And then you just get quiet. You stop doing that. And it's like, you can't. And there were arguments. There's like things that I wanted to say, or I wanted him in the very beginning, and still young, I wanted him to come and see me and say, I'm so sorry. I see all your beauty. I see all the love that you give. I see the good. I see the good things that you did. And I still wanted him to want to be good. Even though we were going to go through a divorce, I wanted you to be wrong about me. I wanted you to feel wrong about me.
Even though we're not working out, you're a beautiful person and you're still a good person.
Yes, I wanted that for both of us. I wanted to be at a good place where...
And because you could give it to him, you thought
I can
he was
see
at
the
a
good
point.
in you. I can see the good in you. I want you to see the good in me. It doesn't have to be. And my mom said to me one time, sometimes you will never get the forgiveness. You'll never hear somebody say the words that you want out of their mouth.
But you can give them to yourself.
Right. And the truth of the matter is, what I'm learning is it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what your mom said. It doesn't really matter what your dad said. It doesn't matter what your friends, your exes, any of them. We choose to heal. We choose to grow for it. We choose redemption and repair, even though they're gone, or even though you never get that sorry that you were fighting for or wanting for. You'll never get that, oh, you're so good, or, you were a great child. You were a great person. Now, what I do with it is what I do with it.
And I wanted to say that because one of the people who brought up redemption brought up estrangement, like, people die while you're estranged to them, right? And then there's a guilt that could I have made it better? Should I have reached out? Should I have, like, whatever that is. And if you're thinking about somebody and you're thinking, like, the reason why I reached out was to my mother, 15 years has passed or whatever, or maybe it wasn't that long. It was a long time, way beyond a decade. And I was like, I'm a different person now. Maybe she's a different person. And maybe she's not picking up the phone because of guilt and shame. Like,
guilt and shame rule a lot of people.
Right? And so I'm going to be the one to reach out first. And some people would see that as weakness. You were weak, you caved first. Like,
yeah,
someone could see that as a weakness, but I'm like, I'm giving someone the opportunity but she just happened not to.
Right.
Be on that mode.
Right. We're not on the same page.
But for a few, she did try, like, she was still in the throes of her drug addiction.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, was she really trying? No, she was now almost 15 years further into her drug addiction.
Yeah.
So
you know,
what could I expect from that? I was hoping.
So the
Well,
person
now-
that you knew no longer, she didn't exist
She
for a
didn't
long
exist,
time.
yeah.
But the shell of her always was a reminder of like, she's in there, she's in there, she's in there.
Yes.
It's that hope. But the truth of the matter is, she's not.
Right.
And as a kid and a young adult, you don't understand that.
Well, I was thinking I was changing. I was thinking she was changing too. I
Yeah.
was thinking like everything changes.
Yes.
Nothing stays the same.
Yes.
Everything changes. So, and this is an opportunity. Like, could we have an opportunity to fix this? We only have each other. My father had passed away. I have no brothers and sisters. Like,
Yeah.
we got to get it together.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit youth
Yeah.
of think an idealistic piece of, well, we got to fix this at some point, right?
Right.
No. You're not fixing that because it's not you. It's nothing to do with you.
No.
And as a child, all you ever hear from people is every parent on the face of the earth, no matter what kind of crappy parent they are, always says, my children are the most important things to me. I will do anything for my children. No, you won't.
Right.
There's a lot of people you're gambling, you're losing your home.
Right.
You're like, there's a lot of things that are happening.
You're
that
not taking care of yourself. You're not exercising. You're being
abusive.
healthy. Yeah.
You're being an alcoholic. You're being a drug addict. Like, you're not doing everything you can for your children. And
Yeah.
that's not to criticize or judge you as that, but that's such a common refrain that it makes you think, what's wrong with me as a kid that my parent isn't doing everything for me?
Right.
That my parent, so it puts a false narrative into what's wrong with me instead of nothing's wrong with you.
Right.
You got adult parents who have a parent who has a problem.
Right.
And the problem is their problem. And that's where the actual compassion comes in, because it is outside of you.
When
You don't
start
have to
see
hold
that.
it.
Well, I think part of that growth too is learning to see that you are a separate entity from your parents. We don't know that. We don't know that young, that we're the same. That's what gives us safety and security, is like, oh, these are my people, this is alignment, but we're all very, very different. Again, it goes back to holding expectations. So I was looking at the stages, the stages of estrangement. You first have shock.
Yep.
And then you have grief. And a lot of times I think we get stuck in this and we don't move from those. But shock, grief, acceptance, liberation. I love that word.
Yeah.
Liberation and redefining oneself.
Mm.
So we get stuck in, and I even say acceptance, probably. We get stuck in acceptance, okay, but we don't do anything with it. We don't really lay it down, but I feel like,
Well, at least you're starting to say it is what it is.
yes. And so
You're not trying to change it. You're not
Right.
trying to re-examine it or analyze it, or you're just, it is
Right.
what it is.
but accepting it, instead of, like, we could be in acceptance for the rest of our life. And so to me, that just means, like, to me, that's dormant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because now you haven't plateaued, you haven't
Mhm.
grown, you haven't elevated. Like, so if these are
You're
the
not
stages,
free from it.
right, you haven't liberated from it. And so when you are liberated and free from it, say, I don't have to carry this with me anymore. This is something I could lay down. It wasn't even mine. Now, redefining oneself is like, I get to choose who I be.
And I can also forgive myself because I reached out trying to
That
make
was
a new
such
start.
bad English. I get to choose who I be, man.
I be what I be, man.
It is what it is. I am who I am. Green eggs and ham. Sam, I am. I don't. It's like, and to catch myself on that.
And I was in the moment. I was going.
It be what it be, man.
It is. Because
New T-shirt.
no, but actually the B word, I'm not even going to say it's wrong, because who are we being?
Right. True.
I actually like the B.
Yeah.
I'm actually saying the B is the right word. Right, it's the verb of it.
Right.
Yes,
the
who are
verb
you
is the-
being? Who are
yes.
you being?
Yeah.
And the reason why I ultimately could forgive myself for my portion of the estrangement, even though my portion of the estrangement was for self-preservation,
Yes.
was I did something on my end to try to fix it. My hands have no blood on them.
Yeah.
But
that's also allowing grace for yourself, giving grace for yourself, because why beat yourself up is because you didn't know. We don't know what we don't know.
I was beating myself up because everyone was saying, but she's your mom. What do you mean?
But you had a tool, but you were given a tool and you didn't have another tool.
Yeah.
Until you expanded and grew, did you only find the other tool? So if all you have is a hammer, guess what you're going to use?
Mm-hmm.
A hammer. But if you need a screwdriver and you finally get a screwdriver for your tool belt, you don't need to use the hammer anymore.
And then you're like, wow, man, a hammer and a screwdriver don't work.
Right.
I'm going away. I'll come back. I'll come back with another.
I'm going to burn it up like that Tesla.
Set on fire.
I'll burn it to the ground.
Yeah, but I think even half, because there was a part of me knew it was selfish. To do what I was doing was selfish. Mm-hmm. But you know what? No one else was protecting me.
I think it's good to be. I think there is a healthy level.
Yeah, it's like,
Are
you selfish if someone's abusing you and you just keep taking it?
Right.
No.
Right.
No. So at some point, I'm selfish. Yep, this is a selfish act. Everyone called me selfish. Right. Everyone told me I was selfish. But I knew it was it wasn't self-centered selfish. It was self-protection selfish.
Yes. So I think selfish is such a dirty word, has become such a dirty word. And the more I'm finding out about we're all meant to be selfish to some level.
Yeah.
Self-care.
Unless you're around people who protect you enough that you can be selfless. Because a lot of times selflessness is you laying down yourself on an altar as a martyr.
Well, I'm here to protect myself. And we should all be here to protect ourselves, but we don't have to do it in a way that
harms other people,
that causes harm, or being egocentric. It doesn't have to be associated with like a bad ego. It is self-protection. And being. I think there is a healthy level of being selfish, caring for yourself. You can't take care of someone else if you can't take care of yourself. And so I do think that there's a level of,
and also that piece of you have to take care of yourself, because if you're just relying on other people to take care of you, resentment comes in somewhere.
Yeah.
So because
taking care of yourself is not selfish.
Right.
And it's become that, is like, if I'm taking care of what is good for me and what works for me, we get all this other thing. Well, guess what? People are going to estrange themselves. I don't fit in, or I don't do. And a lot of times people will separate themselves from you because you make them uncomfortable, because they see that you're growing and it hits something inside of them that
they still have the same tools.
Well, makes them feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, like, how do I do that? How do I learn from that? It might not be. One of the things that I know, like, one of the things that I'm proud about me is the fact that I have no resentment, no anger. None of the hurt resides in me from our divorce. And it was ugly. We fought. It was painful. It was our first. I got married at 22 and we were together for 16 years. And I thought he was, the sun, moon, and the stars. Like, he's a great human being. It was not a great fit for us. But I can look back on those. I mean, there were times, I would cry myself to sleep thinking, like, I want this, and I don't even want to say divorced. I don't want to be a product of divorce. I want to change the narrative. And
you don't want your children to be a product of divorce.
Right. And I want wholesome. And so I struggled with that for a long, long, long time. And there was a point in the time where I would fight. We would get into, trying to hash it out. We would get into arguments because I wanted him to see the good in me. I wanted forgiveness. Like, I wanted us to forgive, and I wanted him to, I didn't want him to truly believe the things that he was saying to me. I don't think he did. I think that a lot of, we say awful things in,
Yeah, and some people have a meaner streak than
when
others.
we're hurt people,
yeah.
hurt people, you know. But I can look back and say, I remember my mom said, Robin, you may not ever get an I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, how do I deal with that? So now today, I'm very proud of myself because I can send him a happy birthday, a happy Father's Day, thank you for being in their life or any of that stuff. I can do that without I don't want a response from him.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because that's who I am and that's
Mhm.
who I choose to be. I'm not waiting for him to text me back. I could care less if he texts me back. I'm going to love on him. I'm going to show him a level of respect and celebrate him because I have been able to let all that stuff go.
Yep.
None of that's mine. That's an old chapter, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old chapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do, that is an example of rewriting the narrative. And,
Well, because sometimes I even think, too, you need more experience on the earth to fill in the gaps that you might not have had at the time. Or you
Right.
need distance from call it an argument. Like, I think of, like, my birth family and, like, some arguments of, like, well, I need a distance because I was so hurt in that argument that there was no room for anything but hurt.
yeah. Well,
The-
distance in experience.
And time.
Yeah.
I need some time from that. But I remember there was a person, and again, she died while estranged. She did reach out, but she reached out in the same way we were fighting. So we were fighting because you're insulting me
Yeah.
all of the time.
Right.
You're making me feel bad, and you're insulting me.
Yes. Right.
Right?
Right.
So, and when you pick up the phone to text me or to leave a voicemail, it is not with the open,
Yeah.
when I picked up the phone to call a family member and say, hey, hi, I know this is weird. I know this is a weird call to get. I understand that. I know this is awkward. Right? It's drunk with some chip
Yeah.
reliving some argument.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is the redemption this isn't the redemption I'm looking for in this relationship. This is the same story.
Yeah.
Right? Try
Yeah.
calling me when you're not
Yeah.
3 wines in
Yeah.
before you pick up the phone to call
Catch me in the AM, not after happy hour.
Again, when the texts start coming at 11:30, I know you're 5 drinks in. Stop
Yeah.
it. Stop calling me now.
It's 5 deep.
11 a.m. unless you started
5
drinking at
vodkas
9.
deep. Yeah.
But so again, that person passed away estranged, but I didn't have any guilt because I just think that was more of a growing apart.
Yeah.
But that was because, again, my relationship with my mother, it was choosing a side.
But a lot of times those arguments happening, those arguments, those friendships, and a lot of those arguments are happening because you're already separating.
Yes.
You're already growing apart. You're choosing different core values and you're realizing that you're not aligned. Like,
Well, what I learned on my birth family side was you were either all into 100% of their opinion or all out because all your opinions weren't the same.
right.
And I was saying, well, I can see your point of view, but I can also see so-and-so's point of view. And what I wanted them, because I've always been someone who can put myself in someone else's shoes. And I swear it's because I'm a reader and I read other people's stories for so long.
Well, yeah, it's having compassion.
But I only think I got compassion because it wasn't mirrored in a lifetime. It was mirrored in these stories. Like I was reading in somebody else's shoes.
But it's something fundamentally of who you are on the inside too, I think.
And so I would say, I understand why. Can't you see my side too? Like I know why you're
Right.
sending lightning with your eyes to me because you're on that person's side.
Right.
But remember, that person is a different person to me.
Right.
That's your daughter. This
Right.
is my mother. Don't you see
Right.
from my side?
Well, that's how I wanted you to remember the good. I wanted you to say like I did do good for you. Like I did. I took care of all your, I doted on you. Like all of these things.
Yeah.
But then we got to get to the point where we just let that go. Like it's not
Yeah.
serving us.
And at some point, before that person died, they wrote an obituary and then they wrote me out of an obituary. And I remember laughing, and I remember everyone, all my friends, my spouse,
Yeah.
everybody's like, you can't laugh at that. That's a huge, that's history. Like,
Yeah.
that's a bad, bad thing. And I was like, well, I can stop feeling guilty now.
Right.
I thought there was something I did wrong, but this is just a mental disorder
I feel like
at some
it's
point.
such a sad way to live when we carry all of these old wounds, of these old emotions. Like, it's weighing you down. Like, don't you want to be free? I feel like our purpose in life is to be seeking joy.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the music come in.
I didn't either.
So thank you for spending my birthday with me.
Yes.
And our birthday with us on this Thursday. You are listening on WSMN, 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live. Until next week, have a happy week.
Have a great weekend.
Operations in China, like Nike and Apple, are being especially hard hit after the Trump administration leveled 34% tariffs on the country, on top of existing 20% tariffs.
That's ABC's Mike Dubusky. President Trump insists the tariffs on other countries will bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S., but that also comes with other cost concerns because it's more expensive to do business in this country. Analysis from UBS says it's plausible the tariffs could knock down U.S. economic growth by 2 percentage points this year. This is ABC News. Jeff Bezos wanted Whole Foods and got it. He wanted the Washington Post and got it. Now it seems he wants TikTok.
Sources telling ABC News Amazon, the biggest e-commerce platform in the world, created by billionaire Jeff Bezos, is joining the bidding war, reportedly sending a letter to the Trump administration. Also making a bid, mobile tech company AppLovin, and a group including tech giant Oracle. Even if President Trump approves the deal, China still has to sign off.
That's ABC's Whit Johnson. Saturday is the deadline for TikTok to either sell or be banned if there's no extension. Ever wonder how much your kids are costing you?
Turns out that the cost of raising one child now costs about $300,000 over 18 years. That's up 25% over the last 2 years, according to a new study from LendingTree. The increase is mostly due to more expensive childcare, health insurance, and food.
That's ABC's Andrew Dimbert, and it doesn't include the cost of college. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad Pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Hi, I'm John Jursic, president of St. Joseph Hospital. At St. Joe's, we're committed to providing exceptional care with a personal touch because healthcare should be about people, not just procedures. Whether you need a trusted primary care provider, advanced surgical care, or community wellness programs, we are here for you. As a proud sponsor of the United Way, we invite you to learn more about our mission of compassionate care at stjosephhospital.com.
Looking for fun, excitement, and a chance to win big? Come to National